Okay, so where are we on time here? 7:03. But let's just give it a couple of more minutes. Content of this meeting is being sent to a third party.
Yeah, that happens when we stream to like Facebook or YouTube or
Oh,
whatever.
oh, I see. Okay.
Somebody's following us, a third party? What
I
is
don't
it?
know. I don't know. It sounds very suspicious.
Right.
Yeah.
My apologies, that might be me. I'm trying to undo that.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Committee Board 12 Manhattan Health and Environment Committee meeting for February the 1st, 2024. I am the chair of the committee, Steve Simon, joined by several of my fellow committee members, Jacob Banis, Heidi Guzman, Jody Herson, Carmen Paulino, and remotely my assistant chair, O.C. Kamina. We have six of our nine committee members with us, and maybe another one may join us yet. We have, as usual, a pretty full agenda, and very pleased that our first guest speaker is Kit Kennedy, the managing director for Climate and Clean Energy for the Climate and Clean Energy Program of the Natural Resources Defense Council, one of the preeminent environmental organizations in the country. And this will be Kit's first appearance before us, and maybe it won't, hopefully, won't be the last. Kit, we're particularly, I think, interested in hearing about the important work that you do at NRDC, and looking forward to your giving us some guidance about issues that our local community board should be involved in on the local level, and maybe even beyond that. So let me turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And it's really great to join you tonight. And thank you for everything you're doing to make New York City a healthier, more sustainable city and a leader on climate and the environment. And as Steve said, for those of you I don't know, my name's Kit Kennedy. I'm a leader within our Climate and Clean Energy program. And NRDC, you may or may not be familiar with, we're one of the large environmental nonprofit organizations. We were founded in 1970, and today we work internationally. We have a big office in Beijing. We have an affiliate doing work in India. And we do a lot of work in DC and in states across the US. Our home, though, is here in New York City. Our offices are in Chelsea on 20th Street. I live in Park Slope in Brooklyn. And we have deep roots doing climate, nature, and health and equity advocacy here in New York City and in New York State. Some of you may know my colleague Eric Goldstein, who's just a wealth of knowledge about New York City environmental issues. Rich Schrader, who is our Albany Legislative Director, Donna DiCostanzo, Sam Wilt, and others. And if you don't know them, I'm happy to make connections. So what I thought I'd do tonight, and Steve, I think I have about 15 minutes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, is just to sort of set the stage. Where are we today with the climate crisis? Touch super briefly on what's going on internationally in DC with the Biden administration, New York State, and then zero in on New York City and talk about three issues which are really important to NRDC and which I feel like the community board should be engaged in if you're not already. One is the implementation of Local Law 97, the kind of nation-leading legislation that was passed back in 2019 to reduce carbon emissions from the building sector. The other is congestion pricing, which is coming soon to New York City, an effort to reduce pollution from cars and trucks, build funding and support for our transit system. And then if we have time, I'll touch on the New York City composting program and some pros and cons there. So, and happy also, just to engage in discussion and answer questions. So in terms of where we are today in the climate crisis, I think we all know that the crisis is here with us, impacting all of us today. 2023 shattered records. It was the hottest year in recorded history. And throughout the US and in New York City, we've seen the impacts of the climate crisis. We experienced Superstorm Sandy, back a few years. We've seen these flash flooding incidents, which, destroy businesses, destroy homes, and have even claimed lives for folks living in basement apartments. Last summer, we experienced the orange sky and the air pollution warnings, which had us all staying inside due to fine soot pollution from the Canadian wildfires. So we all know what it's all about. I think we all sense that it's getting worse. There is some progress, though, and we need to take the progress that we're making and really sort of supercharge it, speed it up, do more quickly, so that we can kind of meet that important window of averting the worst of the climate crisis and limiting climate change to 1.5 degrees Celsius. We can still do it. This is not a hopeless situation, but we all really need to lean into it. Internationally, we just had the COP28 meeting of international leaders in Dubai. We made some progress there. The world's leaders agreed to a tripling of renewable energy by 2030. For the first time, the world leaders agreed to transitioning away from fossil fuel, sort of language that was pretty tentative, but the first time that kind of progress happened from a international convening. Here in the U.S. in D.C., the Biden administration has some significant successes. You may just have read that last week the Biden administration agreed to pause the approval process for liquefied natural gas export facilities. That was an important win. And just as important, if not more important, back in 2022, Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a huge package, $370 billion and more in federal investment in climate mitigation strategies. So there are tax credits for clean energy developers. There's a raft of tax credits for homeowners and just sort of ordinary residents. And if you're not tapped into what's going on with those programs, what the city is doing to bring those benefits to New York City, that might be a good future session. New York State has long been a leader on climate protection. Back some years ago, the state passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which set some very ambitious goals for New York State, specific goals for offshore wind, solar, and renewables, and a commitment to get to net zero kind of across the economy by 2050. That we are working hard with many partners to make sure that the CLCPA is fully implemented and that no one tries to sort of chip away at it up in Albany. We're also very excited about a bill that we're working on with the environmental justice leaders and many others called New York Heat. And this is legislation that would basically stop or slow the expansion of natural gas infrastructure in New York State, and importantly, prevent gas utilities from having gas customers have to bear the cost of expanding gas infrastructure, which happens today. So we're all paying for gas infrastructure, which we can't afford from a climate perspective or a health perspective. And New York Heat also importantly includes a cap on the amount of sort of household income that low-income households would need to pay for electricity. So it's really about affordable electricity, keeping costs down, and more climate progress. Turning to New York City, again, we've all seen the many ways that climate change is impacting the city. And so, what are the sources of greenhouse gases, of climate pollution, carbon pollution in New York City? So buildings are the number one source. Buildings contribute about 38% of the greenhouse gas emissions in New York City. Transportation and waste is the second largest category, producing about 32% of our greenhouse gas emissions. And then building electricity and steam is the final chunk, about 30%. So as we look at what's going on in New York City right now, what kind of progress is being made and kind of what some of the challenges are. Local Law 97 is really just a very important city piece of legislation. It's complex, it's challenging, and building owners of a certain size, condos and co-ops of a certain size are all impacted by it. So it's really important for New York City residents to understand how local law 97 works, what is required in terms of compliance, and kind of help that you can get from New York City and other resources to comply with the law. Local Law 97 was passed in April 2019 as part of the Climate Mobilization Act, a big package of climate protections passed by the City Council and signed into law by the mayor. The goal is to drastically reduce carbon emissions from buildings in New York City. Again, they are the largest source of greenhouse gas pollution in the city. The law covers buildings that are larger than 25,000 square feet. That includes 2+ buildings on the same lot that together are larger than 50,000 square feet. It includes 2+ condo buildings with the same board, which together are larger than 50,000 square feet. And all told, nearly 60% of New York City buildings are covered. And the law establishes carbon caps for buildings starting in 2024, this year, and tightening through 2030 and beyond. There are different ways to comply that are easier for affordable housing and houses of worship. And there are large fines for non-compliance, which will kick in over the next few years. So what do these large buildings, 25,000 square feet and up, have to do to comply? Basically, there are a couple of different pathways. Buildings can reduce their carbon intensity through making their buildings more energy efficient heating and cooling systems, for instance, by fuel switching away from, for instance, burning oil, if buildings still do. Buildings can use offsets and deductions to a certain extent to comply with the law. Starting a couple years from now, there will be renewable energy credits that buildings can purchase that will cover some of the compliance. Buildings can install clean, distributed energy resources like storage systems. And there are also greenhouse gas offsets that can be used for compliance under certain circumstances. There's also credits that buildings can get for becoming all electric, for installing, for instance, heat pumps to provide heating and cooling, and moving to electric stoves and water heating. Buildings can also comply by paying fines, but obviously that's the least favored option from anyone's perspective. Building owners don't want to pay fines. And the city doesn't want compliance via fines because I think the city is looking to get the greenhouse gas benefits of this law. And I will say there's a lot more to say about the details of the law, but I'll just say that New York City has some good resources to help building owners comply with the law. There's a site called the New York City Accelerator, which will provide free technical assistance to buildings, help building owners figure out kind of what the right pathway is going to be for them, and just sort of guide them through the whole process. And I'm just going to put the link to that in chat. Organizations like NRDC can help. We served on the advisory board for implementation, and Urban Green is another great organization that has really good resources about Local Law 97 on their website. I'll speak just briefly about congestion pricing and composting because I know my time is coming to an end. I think we've all read about congestion pricing. The formal name is the Central Business District Tolling Program. This has been in the works for a long time. New York State mandated it again back in 2019. The goal is to cut carbon emissions and the emissions of health-harming pollution from cars and trucks, relieve traffic congestion in the Central Business District in Manhattan, and also support transit improvements, which New Yorkers badly need. So the program is about to be finalized. It'll start in April 2024, April of this year, just a few months away, absent any hiccups. The proposed toll rate is $15 to enter the Central Business District by day. It's $3.75 by night. And the central business district is defined as Manhattan south of 60th Street, excluding the FDR Drive and West Side Highway. Emergency vehicles and vehicles for disabled folks are exempted, and there are low-income discounts. And just one important thing to understand is that the MTA is now accepting public comment on these plans. So there are public hearings, which I think are virtual, February 29th and March 1st and 4th. Written public comments can be submitted through March 11th. And I'll put in chat some helpful info from the MTA just to sort of help provide the details about congestion pricing. And of course, cities around the world, including London, have congestion pricing already in place and are experiencing the benefits of it. On composting, I'll just say very, very briefly, last year, the City Council passed a mandatory curbside composting organic waste program. So this was a real breakthrough. Some neighborhoods, including my neighborhood in Park Slope, have had curbside composting pickup for a long time, but that's been the exception rather than the rule. Now, starting in October of this year, the whole city will be able to put out their composting with their regular garbage, and with recycling. And this is a big boost in terms of climate, sort of helping with the rat problem that we've experienced in this city, and a host of other benefits. At the same time, NRDC is concerned that Mayor Adams' budget would zero out the composting programs that have been run by nonprofits, the botanical gardens, and other folks, which accept composting from community gardens and the like. We think it's important to keep those going as well as having the mandatory program. And if anyone has any questions, my wonderful colleague Eric Goldstein is happy to answer them, and I can put his email in chat. So I think I probably exceeded my 15 minutes, Steve, so sorry about that. Happy to answer any questions or just to stop.
Well, first of all, you have nothing to apologize for. Thank you very much. You hit upon three very significant issues. Let me ask you, with respect to Local Law 97, there was a lot of talk, maybe going back a few months ago, about how the law might be amended, that it might be the timeline might be stretched. Co-ops and condos in particular were saying that they needed more time. So was the law, I guess the law was not amended, is that correct?
There was some additional time and leniency added, not through a change to the legislation, but through the city's regulations. And it's complex. I won't try to sort of say it all here, and I'll put something in link. But basically, the city is giving more time to co-op and condo owners who are making good faith efforts to comply, but need a little bit more time. So it's not like don't think about it. There's nothing that you need to do. But if you can meet that kind of good faith exemption, you can get a little bit more time for the first compliance deadlines.
Okay, I have one other question before I turn to OC, my assistant chair, who is particularly focused on this issue. How do tenants like me know whether or not a landlord is complying with the law? Can you clue me in on how that might work?
Well, here are some initial tips. If you go to, I put into chat this Accelerator NYC Local Law 97 website, and there's some very helpful info in there. They have a map. You can put in the address of your building, and it will tell you whether it's covered by Local Law 97, and if it is, sort of when compliance is required. So I think that's the first step. And beyond that, I'm not sure how much information it has about what landlords are doing, but there are folks you can talk to live within the city who can advise on all on those kinds of things. So I think that would be a second step, reaching out and asking the question, and seeing how much information you can get.
And I assume this is the agency that you would turn to in this case would be the Department of Buildings.
Well, it is, yes. And so this accelerator, which I'm talking about, is set up by New York City to help New Yorkers understand the local law and get free help. And so I'm not sure if this is an effort by the mayor's office or DOB, but DOB's website also has some really helpful information on the timelines and the requirements. I can also put that link in chat.
All right. Thank you. Let me turn to OC Kamina, who's been talking about this issue for quite a while now. Go ahead, OC.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm sorry, I'm a little sick. So I'm going to briefly touch on a few issues, even though I can talk about Local Law 97. I can write a book. So number one issue that the city never really addressed is the number 4 heating oil. If this should be illegal, I don't know why they decided not to. I mean, I don't know why it was decided to make number 4 oil illegal only in 2030. If they make it illegal now or in 6 months, it's a very, very simple and cheap conversion. You don't have to do much. Now, I'm coming from a building, I'm one of 2 building that completed the ERP back in 2013. The entire 15% was done. We were actually a poster co-op, and we had a presentation.
OC, I'm sorry, but for the benefit of the rest of us, tell us what the ERP is. To me, it means Emergency Repair Program. I assume it's in this case, it must mean something else.
It's a energy reduction plan. Back in 2009, the city passed local law, I think it was L87, if I'm not mistaken, to reduce building emission by 15%. Only 8.5% of that was required by law. The other of 7% or so was not, was optional. We completed the entire 15%. We were example building for presentations at BX. And we had numerous conversations with the New York accelerators on a variety of things. I probably know their phone number by heart. So my question is why the city didn't decide to outlaw number 4 oil, which would help us all, because we are running on number 2 oil like other as well. However, because Local Law 84, which is the benchmarking, will calculate your grade according to the surrounding buildings. So if I'm running on number 6 oil, which never mind, it's illegal, and you're running on number 2 oil, your grade is lower because of me. So this needs to be addressed, and it's very simple, something to address. That has to happen really right away. Biofuel, we don't get a grade, more points on the grade in New York City, even though the biofuel in New York City comes from cooking oil. What we're saying here is that there is not much emission coming out of it from the source. This is something the city needs to address that will help building to move away from fossil fuel. The other thing is the Local Law 84 measurements, because we still don't know if the measurements of the building that we're calculating Local Law 84 is by what the Department of Finance is telling us, or should we go ahead and calculate the building with any basements and so forth, not livable spaces that Department of Finance doesn't calculate. And why I'm saying it is because the New York accelerator said, go ahead and do it. That's the law of the land. You can. We don't know if it's going to hurt us when it's come to real estate taxes. So this is another little thing. Now, with all of
Oh,
this,
Osi,
electrification,
why don't we give Kate a chance to respond?
okay, and then I'm gonna continue on. Okay,
Yeah, so I mean, I think we all understand, all of us on this call sort of understand the complexity of passing legislation of any kind, particularly legislation like this, which is real again, sort of really first in the nation. So, I don't think so. There are questions about compliance and implementation that everyone really needs answers on. I think the city is trying to answer them, but it's challenging. And one of the things about buildings and controlling emissions from buildings is if you're talking about controlling emissions from power plants, that's challenging too. There are technological issues, but say there are 1,000 power plants in the United States. It's relatively simple to identify them and to sort of understand who's responsible for doing what. Buildings, it's a much more complicated situation because there are so many buildings, here in New York City and across the country. So all of which is a way of saying, I don't think anyone thinks all the questions have been answered yet. And the city really needs to lean into answering questions like yours, OC, and I would use the community board forum to bring DOB officials, folks from the mayor's office, folks from the Office of Sustainability, to talk to you and really give their answers to your questions, because they're the ones who are in charge of implementation. On the on the oil issue, we've been advocating to get oil out of buildings for a long time. Back in the 1950s and 60s and before, coal burning was allowed in New York City buildings. Coal burning, our schools were burning coal in furnaces 30 years ago, and I remember that from my early advocacy days. So fossil fuels all have climate pollution impacts. Coal is the worst in terms of the intensity of the impact. Then there's oil and the different gradations of oil. Then there's gas. And even gas, we understand today, has all sorts of bad implications for climate and for health. So our overall goal in the longer term is to electrify buildings so that we're heating and cooling our buildings with renewable electricity. We're not there yet. And I wish that transition from oil was happening more quickly. But again, in legislation, all sorts of compromises are made to get legislation passed.
but we already get tax credit from the state, from New York State, on any gallon of biodiesel, which is like, I think, whatever is up from 6% and up. So we're getting tax credit from the state. Why are we not getting an additional points on our grade from New York City? This is odd. This is something that needs to be resolved. We are ready to go, for higher biodiesel, whatever, but right now we're only going on 20. So this is something that the city needs to address. And in my view, I think that this law as it is right now will cause some displacements, because I know for a fact one building owner that is forced to sell because they cannot, keep up with the requirements. And that's what's going to happen. I mean, the rents for the market rates will go up significantly. So those that can afford some of the market rate right now will not be able to do it in the next few years. So I don't think the city looked at that in a holistic way. I think there are simple things that can be addressed right away, like get rid of number 4 oil, for example, give us credit for biodiesel. And electrification, sure, will happen in 2040, but it's an enormous expense. Enormous expense. I don't know one building that can afford it right now with all the credits and the grants and you name it. It's really big expense.
So, I think you've got legitimate questions. I think you should bring folks from DOB and the mayor's office in and see what they have to say. Buildings in New York City, both new ones and retrofit ones, are electrifying now. It's a process, and there are upfront costs and then savings later on, and also savings, of course, in terms of the health of people in the buildings, and the health of the city as a whole. The Inflation Reduction Act, which I mentioned at the beginning of my chat, does have tax credits for heat pumps, for other forms of electrification equipment. And I think the city and the feds and the state really should be getting out the word about how to apply for those tax credits, and helping New Yorkers to use them, because that does help a lot.
Right. I don't think we have any other. Jody, you have a question?
Just a quick question. Kit, I really appreciate all of this. And as you probably know, I mean, the local laws that are, and this has nothing to do with you, but the local laws that are coming down that are just, smacking our buildings. I live in a co-op and we have the facade, work that needs to be done. That's $1 million. Then you have the local law 97 and that. And so it is really difficult for buildings. And, a lot of buildings are really operating on a landlord, trying to meet the guidelines. And then buildings like ours, which are often naive to a lot of it. So based on the information that you've provided, is your best suggestion to go to the accelerator and really reach out to him? Because, honestly, I don't think our building knows anything about the tax credits.
Yeah, I would start there with the accelerator. And again, I put the link in chat. I also put the link to the DOB website, but this is broader than DOB. Again, the mayor's office is very involved. Other agencies, NYSERDA, the state's Energy Research Development Authority is supporting this effort as well. So I would start with the accelerator. It's pretty. It's pretty user friendly. I was playing around with it today. They claim that you can reach an actual human being and get free advice and assistance. So I would definitely start there. And you, as a community board, I mean, you have a very important bully pulpit. So, Stephen and OC, just call them in. Ask them questions, and continue to be sort of part of this process. There's some more rulemaking which will be happening over the next year, and be in touch with your city council representatives about ways in which you think the law should be improved.
And I just want to mention that as well. We did reach out to our councilman, Sean Abreu, and he is setting up some meetings
Good.
With the accelerator to go over this, and we'll be reaching out to buildings. Apparently a poster or notices are going out to buildings that there is a meeting, I think sometime in March.
Oh, great. All right. All right. So Kit, I want to thank you very much. You've now earned a title as an official advisor to our committee. And I appreciate the fact that you took the time to talk to us tonight. And I hope that you will stay in touch with us and continue to inform us as things develop here. And if there's particular legislation that you think we could support, one of the standard things we do is pass resolutions in support of legislation that's pending, both at the city and the state levels. Where you think we could be helpful, please feel free to reach out to us because we're going to feel free to reach out to you.
Excellent. Thank you. And it's, it's a real pleasure to talk to you and, just being on the community board. I know it's a big time commitment. And thank you all for what you're doing.
Well, thank you for what you're doing and for what you've been doing over the years. Thank you very much. And thank you again for joining us.
Okay. Good night.
Okay, take care.
Take care.
All right. Next on the agenda is an annual report that from our EMS station number 13 about the state of ambulance service in Washington Heights and Inwood. EMS station 13, as you probably know, is located on Amsterdam Avenue at 172nd Street. It's as I mentioned, we actually haven't had an annual report for the last couple of years, maybe, or maybe it's been 2 years. I think we skipped last year, but we've at this committee we've taken a particular interest in the in that EMS station. We advocated to have that station about maybe 10 years ago when it our ambulances used to come out of Harlem Hospital on 136th Street. And we were very anxious when they first started talking to us and saying that they were looking for a site in Washington Heights and Inwood. We said, go for it. Yes, we want you to be located right here because we don't want to lose any time. We want the ambulances to be in our community for the maximum amount of time possible. So we don't want you traveling back and forth. We want you to stay in the community. If you have to refuel or you have to clean the ambulance or you got to change shifts, we don't want you to lose valuable time. So we were very happy when Station 13 was opened up in our right here in our community, and so we do like to hear from the captain there every year. We'll go. Hopefully, we'll go back on a regular schedule and hear from him every year. So in 2024, this is now our annual report looking back on how things were in 2023, and the captain is Glenn Taylor. Captain Taylor, let me turn it over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here and also the commanding officer of Station 13. I'm Captain Glenn Taylor. I do have to say I do not have the actual stats for Washington Heights. I only have the stats for Station 13. It was a bit of a last minute. Station 13 can be a reflection of how things are doing in the Heights, but not necessarily because it's kind of like raw data. So I just wanted that to be sure. I wanted you guys to know that before I continue.
But Captain, isn't it basically the same? But the Station 13 cover, do you go below 155th Street?
Yeah, so how it works, there's a something called a SUJU, which is like suggested unit, right? So if there's a call that comes in anywhere in the city, it's like a GPS computer system that detects what's the closest unit, and that unit can be anywhere. So even though my units are responding in Washington Heights, if they're the closest unit to, let's say, the Bronx or to Harlem, then they're just going to respond, and it goes vice versa as well. We do get units from the Bronx and units from Harlem that respond up here as well.
Well, I tell you, for the purposes of our discussion, as far as we're concerned, Station 13, since you cover Washington Heights and Inwood, that's our focus. We want to, we want to hear about the ambulances that are operating out of our local station.
Okay. Well, Station 13 has about an average of 7-minute response time, which is actually pretty good. That's like the marker of where we want to be. Of course, less is better, but anything greater than 7, it's something that's maybe considered a problem. And if it's like almost 10 minutes to a call, that's considered an extreme problem. So being at like 7 minutes and 1 second exactly, Station 13 in of itself is actually doing pretty well in terms of response times. However, I don't have the raw data, but response times in Washington Heights and up northern Manhattan on the whole has increased. So a response to that was to have 3 additional ambulance units assigned to Station 13, and that started in January 7th. Prior to January 7th, we had 8 units. 7 of those units are 12-hour units, and 1 is an 8-hour unit. With the 3 additional units, we now have a total of 10. I'm sorry, we had 7 units prior to, and then in 3 additional, we have a total of 10. And those 3 units are 12 hours, but they mostly work during the morning shift where the call volume is high. And then the times ranges from 8 in the morning to 10 in the morning, with peak times around 10 a.m. to I want to say maybe 8 o'clock at night. So far, I've seen some improvement in terms of call volume. The idea with these additional units was to reduce response times. The idea was to have, if we have more units available or more units in service to meet the demands of the community in terms of call volume, then we'll have we won't have units coming from other areas responding into the Heights. That would increase those times and increase the timing that a person will get pre-hospital care. In the works, there's an additional unit that's in the talks that we may see in the spring. This unit in particular is it's called the AR unit. I believe it's automatic response unit. It's starting in Harlem this month, and then it's looking to expand here in the Heights possibly next month. What this unit would do is they don't necessarily transport, but once there's a 911 of a high priority could be a heart attack, cardiac arrest, stroke, they respond to the assignments, initiate patient care, and then a transporting unit would come and then transport the unit. And that way it'll help the civilians can get pre-hospital care in a better timely fashion. The areas that the call volumes were really high were in like the 34 Adam. So the 3 additional units that were assigned.
Well, one second. We don't know 34 Adam.
That's like the 34th precinct.
Oh, okay, fine, okay. Oh, okay.
So I'll give like the areas, right? So one unit is Dyckman and Nagel. Then the other unit's response area is Broadway and Academy Street, and then the other unit is West 180th and Nicholas Ave.
Those are the 3 new ones.
Yes, because there was like a high call volume concentrated in that area in particular.
Right.
So
right.
Prior to that, we only had maybe 4 units responding in that area. So now we have an additional 3.
Well, this is huge news. Yeah, I mean, this is a very significant increase in your capacity, right? I mean,
it's been a long time coming. We needed these.
I'd rip out the front page. I mean, this is big news.
It is. It's it's one of the things I noticed when I first got here is that we needed more units. We needed more personnel and we needed more units. And I'm glad that my not just my alone, but my efforts, my voice was heard and things were put into place because the call volume was just very high. And there were jobs holding for quite some time. And that's just unacceptable. So, I'm glad that we're finally in a place where we're addressing it and that it hasn't even been a month yet, but so far, at least I feel that there's less jobs that are holding. I don't know if response times have decreased, but we'll know in the coming months.
But your workload, I have to assume, has declined since the peak of COVID in 2020, 2021.
Actually, the call volume is very, very high during COVID.
Yeah.
We're actually going past that.
Really?
Yeah, the call volume is just, let's say 16 years ago when I started the job, 3,000 jobs was considered busy. We're near 6,000 on a daily basis, and that's citywide.
All right. I seem to recall, maybe my memory is a little hazy on this. I seem to recall that maybe the response time had earlier been around 6 minutes when we had earlier reports from the captain at the station.
Yes, they were. And again, that's not response times to the area. That's just response times for the station.
Right. Yeah.
So that doesn't consider, like, for example, if one of my units are at the station and they get called to the Bronx, that's not necessarily response time for the area. If there's a unit in Harlem that's closer, because all of my units are on assignments, that will factor in, and that would increase the response time as well.
Right. Okay, but that kind of a situation would have occurred in the past as well. I mean, it's not like your units are now going to the Bronx and never went there before. But I mean, I assume they had to respond to whatever calls uh, what they were most equipped to do. So
Yes.
so it looks as though maybe our response time has uh, maybe increased somewhat. Uh, yeah, and but you think now with the additional 3 units, maybe you should be able to bring that down.
Yes, that's the goal.
That is the goal. All right, very
Yeah.
good. Carmen has a question.
Do you know what determines the amount of units that get assigned to a certain neighborhood? Is that by population or is that normally driven by like data? After a certain amount of time, they see there's an increase in calls and then they dispatch additional units. How does that
So
get?
it depends on the call volume in a certain area. So and it also depends on like the community and the demand that the community puts on the department for these units. Um, like for example, these 3 additional units came from Queens, right? So the department can't create units. They have to come they have to come from somewhere. Um, so these additional units were coming from Queens. On a daily basis, there were units that were assigned to Manhattan North to assist with the call volume. So then our chief of the department decided instead of just having these units in Queens and just delay time coming all the way from I'm not sure of the area in Queens, but um instead of having them like having to travel all the way to uptown Manhattan, just to have these units here already. So those 3 units were sent here. Um and then that's pretty much it's like kind of like let's say there's I want to say maybe like 358 units citywide. So the chief of the department has to work within that number. So if there's less calls in one area, he can then move a unit to another area of the city. And that's essentially where we got these 3 units from. In terms of creating new units, that goes way beyond my pay grade.
Thank you.
All right, very good. OC, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a question and I have a comment.
Okay.
I wonder if you can point out what changed that we now it's great. I'm wonderful that we have 3 more. It's all wonderful. But what was the change, the trigger we have to have those 3 units here in our district?
I think there was a change in management. And I think just my personal opinion is that the change in management was more vocal in what we needed. There was always a need. There was a need from years back, but I think I could say that I've been vocal, and I know that my immediate superiors have been more vocal, and I think that was probably what was the change. People advocating for this area. That's what I think.
Okay.
Because the need was always there and it was always evident, I feel. But
Uh-huh.
there are also other things that play as well. Manhattan as a whole was looked as one borough. And I want to say maybe within the past 4 or 5 years, Manhattan now is split in half. So you have northern Manhattan and then you have south and central Manhattan are separated. So now Manhattan as a whole looks great. But when you look at stats, when you separated it, you realize now there was a problem. Then there was a problem up north. So the good stats further downtown, which I hate to simplify it like that, but just for for clarity, the better stats downtown kind of covered the problems that were occurring up north, at least on paper, I should say. So when the divisions were split, I think that's when the problem was noticed and just different tactics were developed. And I think the latest tactic is just assigning more units and having more personnel. I think it's a simple solution.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And my other thing is about the AR unit. I mean, that may sound funny, but is this a full-blown ambulance or it only has the very basic saving life equipment? Like,
So
well, that would be an
it's
ambulance,
still
but
yeah, it's still very new. It's been implemented in I want to say Randall's Island.
Mhm.
And I think that worked very well. Um, but that's essentially designed is not designed to transport. they can have an ambulance, but they can also work out of a van. It just depends. But they're there just to initiate patient care and then transfer over that patient care to a unit that can transport.
Okay, so the reason why I ask, and then this is the funny part,
Okay.
is that where I'm coming from in Israel, they have, because of traffic situation, which is really bad, they have motorcycle units
Mhm.
that comes in with a very, very basic life-saving equipment on a motorcycle. They only come there to stabilize, and in the meantime, the ambulance is following, I mean, in terrible traffic, but at least somebody is getting there first to start to try to save lives. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys looked at something like that. I mean, maybe the traffic here is not that bad. I think depending on the hours could be really bad. But did you
Yeah.
look at something, that kind of option?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's responding to the jobs, to the assignments to
Mhm.
initiate that patient care.
Mhm.
And then it's very simplified the way I'm describing it. But yeah, that's essentially what you described is exactly what it is.
Okay, except you guys have an ambulance, and what question was about motorcycle that can drive.
No. You put in a motorcycle, you have to train people on motorcycle, and
No,
then
not
I
transfer, not transfer, just doing the basic, getting there
yeah,
first.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right,
You're welcome.
all right, Captain, there's been a particular issue that has that this committee has looked into over the years in regard to the turnaround time for your crews when they drop off patients at the emergency room over here at 168th Street. And when we started looking at it, and let me just put this in perspective for people who may not understand. The point here is to have your ambulance crews spend as little time as possible over at the hospital dropping off patients, so you can go back into the street and answer calls and then provide more service. So it's basically in everyone's interest that you not get stuck having to hang around at the emergency room. So when we looked at this some years ago, we were troubled by the fact that the turnaround time then was something like 32 minutes. When I met with you a few days ago, I believe you told me that the turnaround time is actually now up to 39 minutes. Can you speak to that and and let us know what you think could be done to bring the time down so your crews can be get back and uh, back and respond to calls again?
This is a very universal issue, I think, citywide. Um, but in terms of dealing with Columbia Presbyterian, um, there's been issues with delayed in triage. Um, and these are issues that I think it's an ongoing conversation. And I think is what our expectation of is when we're transporting patients into the ER, and also the expectation of the receiving staff. What we could do on our end, which is what we continue to do, is have a supervisor there as much as possible to assist. The supervisor role in the field has been mostly comprised of just assisting in the ER whenever not on an assignment, which usually the officers assign themselves to assignments. They do get assigned at times, but when they're not, they're expected to be in the ER assisting the crews. There's a lot of issues that are particular to different hospitals. So with Columbia Presbyterian, I would say the pediatric ER is on the other side of the hospital where the adult side is. So if you have a mother and child that needs to be triaged together, that can cause like some delay. We have a patient that requires an EKG. We try not to have the EKGs done on the stretchers. So if the patient could be transported into the hospital stretcher, and then the hospital can provide care for that patient, whether it be, vital signs or EKGs, then that would facilitate us to leave the hospital sooner. However, this has been done more often than not. Another thing too is that when we have obstetric patients, we're not supposed to go upstairs. However, it's kind of like it's something that's done, I guess, out of like customs or tradition to assist the patient up to the OB ward, but that's not something we're supposed to do. We're supposed to just transfer patient care in ER and then that's it. When it's a low priority in a patient's ambulatory, it really shouldn't take long. We have a patient that requires a stretcher. It depends on the availability of stretchers. If the ER is full and they don't have any beds available or they're waiting for beds from the other floors, that can take some time as well. These are things that may be out of the hospital's control, at least in the immediate moment, and it's definitely out of our control. There are some things that we're thinking of to help. Let's say if the unit needs help cleaning or help restocking while they're in the ER, the officers in the road can assist them with that while they're waiting triage. But yeah, it's been an ongoing problem, and I wouldn't say necessarily just with Columbia Presbyterian, just as a whole. Different jobs, different roles, and then I think just continued conversation will just bring about an understanding as to what we need to get in service faster.
Well, do you meet with the hospital to hash out these problems?
Yeah, there was a meeting, I want to say in June. I did not attend, but the main issue at that time was having EKGs done on the stretchers, on our stretchers. We were told that's not going to be a thing anymore, but however, I think it's different tours, different shifts have different I don't know, rules, I guess, or standards. So the message hasn't been implemented everywhere. And I don't want to like pinpoint everything on the ER staff. You know, the call volume is going up. There's more patients. So, and, you know, Columbia Presbyterian it's a popular hospital, and they're always at full capacity. So these are things that are just you know, out of some of our control, unfortunately.
Well, it's a big disappointment to me because you know, the hospital greatly expanded the size of its emergency room some years ago, and at that point, you know, they told us that well, that they would be able to bring down this turnaround time at that point, but it seems like the situation has only gotten worse.
Yeah, the ER was expanded, but like me personally, I feel like when I go in there to assist the crews, it's like almost like a maze trying to find them and where they are because they're not always where they're supposed to be, and they're only supposed to be in triage. So it's yeah, the expansion is great, but it's I wouldn't say it's difficult to navigate, but there's just more to navigate. I should say.
Yeah, sure. All right. OC, is that a new hand?
No, I'm sorry, lower. Yeah, I'm sorry, no.
Okay, Jacob, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Captain Taylor, first of all, thank you so much for your service. Former volunteer EMT from a small rural hospital, so I can't even fathom what you and your crews work on a day-to-day basis. It's appreciated. Something that comes up here time to time that we discuss is understanding how units route to hospitals with patients, especially trauma patients. Occasionally, we heard, you know, someone was injured in the north of our community district and then was brought down to Harlem Hospital. And I think there's been some confusion in understanding how those decisions happen and maybe why certain units bring patients to specific hospitals. Could you briefly touch on that?
Yeah, well, let me just, before you get to that, let me just say, this is a very vexing question for us, and has really bugged us for quite a while. And I mentioned this to you when we met, that you know, people get shot, but people get into horrible accidents, get severely injured, and even if they're right within the vicinity of the medical center, they end up being transported all the way out to St. Barnabas in the Bronx, down to Harlem Hospital. There was a case recently where somebody went over to Metropolitan Hospital, and for us, it just seems like we're losing valuable time by you know, every minute should count. In a case like this, we assume, and yet instead of bringing the patient to the very closest hospital. It was even a situation a year or two ago where somebody was shot like outside the Wendy's on 165th and Broadway, and rather than being brought across the street into Presbyterian, they were taken down to Harlem Hospital. So this is somewhat troubling.
I can understand why it would appear so. So we can only work in the confines of what the hospital has, right? So not all hospitals are the same. There are some hospitals that specialize in strokes. There's some hospitals that specialize like in heart attacks. There's trauma hospitals and so on and so forth. So if the closest hospital wouldn't necessarily treat that patient for whatever the condition is, in the case that you brought up with trauma, it would not be beneficial to the patient to go to that closest hospital. In the case of a trauma, and the patient needs to go to a trauma center, they would need a surgeon. So if they go to a hospital where there's no surgeon, you're just delaying what they really need, and they need surgery. So let's say, for example, if there's a really bad car accident 2 blocks from Allen Pavilion, they're gonna go to either St. Barnabas or to Harlem, depending on what the GPS on the computer determines, which is closer based upon the time of day. Because that patient will benefit better going to a trauma center and getting the treatment that they deserve. Yes, they can go to a closer hospital, but the staff there will not be equipped or even have the experience in dealing with that. And it's not in the best interest of the patient. So yes, you may say like maybe a difference of like 5, 6, or even 10 minutes of being in an ambulance, but they're getting the care that they need. And it's the same care that they would get at that hospital as well, for the most part. So it's really in the best interest of the patient that they go to a hospital that specializes in whatever the condition is. So that's why Harlem is a trauma center, St. Barnabas is a trauma center. So that's why we bypassed like Allen Pavilion or Columbia Presbyterian. It would be the same if we were going for like a pediatric trauma. Columbia Presbyterian has a pediatric trauma center, so they will be the closest. If the patient was burned severely, then they would need to go to a burn center, which would either be Cornell or Jacobi, depending on where they are. So it just depends on a lot of factors. But the hospitals, they lose and gain credentials every day, right? One month a hospital will accept stroke patients, and then maybe they'll lose their CAT scan will go down, or there's like an issue with the facility, or they have a staffing issue, and then they can no longer take stroke patients. So then we have to bypass and go to another. It all depends on the hospital. But in terms of it's all done in the best interest of the patient, and that's really my main point. So I know it may appear that we're just like, delaying care, but it's not. We're providing the care en route, and then they're going to a hospital that is more definitive care.
Well, I don't mean to argue with you, but it does seem to us as laymen that Presbyterian should have the capability of providing, that kind of level of care. That if they could do it for pediatrics, they should be able to do it as well for adults. And certainly we would, with no disrespect to the other hospitals that are level 1 trauma centers, but Presbyterian presumably is is one of the top hospitals in the country, and why the fact that they should be able to provide that level of service. I don't know. It just to me is a little mind-boggling. OC, are you? Is that a new hand?
It's a new hand, and you're touching exactly on what I was going to say. I think what will be good to know in terms of response time, not by the EMS, but once they get to the hospital, because you're traveling to Presbyterian in our district, it's a far shorter commute than going down to Harlem or going to St. Barnabas. So my question is, what is the data set in terms of life saving? How many lives are saved when the hospital when you're right there, when the trauma center is right there, and your travel is shorter? I mean, I'm sure there is data about that.
If there is, I don't have that data, honestly. My apologies for that. I definitely understand the concern, but just understanding how things work. If I was a trauma patient, I would want to go to a trauma hospital. I wouldn't want to go, as great of a hospital as Columbia Presbyterian is, and I would go there to seek care for myself. I would not go there if I was a trauma patient, because they don't have the capability to treat me. So I get how, if you're not a part of, lack of better phrasing, this world, you don't understand. But you need to have you need to have the training and the capabilities to treat patients for whatever condition that they're experiencing. In terms of Columbia Presbyterian becoming level 1 trauma, that's solely on Columbia Presbyterian.
Right. I just wonder
Right,
if
yeah.
you feel that we should benefit from having
Oh yeah,
a trauma center right here.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Okay, Captain, you did you say early on that you don't have the numbers tonight of the call volume and the number of calls that your ambulance has responded to in 2023?
For station 13, do I have that? I know it's on average of 92 calls per day. That I can tell you, but that's station 13. That's not Washington Heights.
No,
And
that's okay.
There's a lot of other things that factor in. Like, for example, when a unit goes out restocking, that's a call, right? So those are things that are also, it's very raw data that I have.
All right. Well, to the extent that you might be able to provide us with some numbers showing the number of calls that your people are responding to, and the number of people in our community, especially that you're able to get to and bring, and then treat and then transport. I mean, we would like to. That would be some nice information for us to have. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your advocacy. I want to thank you for pushing to get us those 3 additional units. That's just fantastic news. And I want you to know that we're here to help you. Well, you're there to help us, but we also want to help you because obviously to the extent that that station 13 functions better and that you can provide more service to our community, the better off we are.
Yeah.
So if there's anything we can do to help you, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, and let's stay in touch, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Take care.
All right, and next on the agenda is basically a continuation of a discussion we had at our last meeting about the issue with the retention of the nurse midwifery services at the Allen Hospital. We're joined by Claudia Copeland and looks like Rosalina Lozada. Okay. You're definitely here for that topic since you're identified as a midwife. So, Claudia, can you bring us up to date on whether there's been any change in the situation since you were with us last month?
There has not been a change in the situation. The hospital has, in fact, good evening, everybody. I'm sorry, and happy Black History Month. And it is so unfortunate that we're talking about this issue of as it affects our Black and Brown midwives, and then also the community in which they serve. So I'm starting off in that way, but I wanted to, there has not been that much change. The biggest thing that has happened is that Attorney General Tish James has written a letter to Dr. Corwin, the CEO, as well as to the board member, Jerry Spire. He sits on the board of New York Presbyterian. Jerry Spire, for those of you who don't know, is a real estate mogul, is considered really the 1% of 1%. He's a billionaire. And NYP's board is really the who of the 1%ers. And so Tish James has sent a scathing letter to them in regards to this, as well as NYSNA has sent a letter from politicians who signed on from the community to state their support of the midwives and to ask for a reversal of NYP's decision. What NYP has done, so that's the community political piece. What NYP has done has hired what I understand to be 2 midwives. They've taken them around the hospital in front of the midwives that we have now. Brought one of them in on a weekend to bring her around the hospital, and then brought one in earlier this week.
Oh, are you referring to? Are you referring specifically to the Allen Hospital?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
There are concerns that the midwives that they've hired will not have cultural competency for the community in which they will serve. As you all know, Rosalina Lazara is not only a midwife at the Allen, but has been raised in Washington Heights and currently lives and raises her children in Washington Heights. So that's really important, that the lack of cultural competency will be there. That's not great. That is not okay for our community. And the other piece of this that I really want to bring up and amplify here is that when the midwives were laid off, they were told that they could find jobs in NYP. There are no midwifery jobs in NYP, 0 midwifery jobs. So a few of our midwives have decided that they will take bedside jobs or jobs of a lower classification, and their salaries as they stand would be, according to NYP, although our contract says there can be no reduction in their pay, NYP has stated that they are going to reduce their pay to the classification. I just want to state that if this profession was as male dominated, has police officers, has firefighters, has construction workers, in no way would that happen because men are seen as head of household. And I want to just state each of the folks in this bargaining unit are the head of their household. Rosalina, for example, is a single parent looking at a potential $20,000 to $30,000 decrease in her pay, which the union will fight and we will file a grievance, but that will take time. So in the midst of that, Rosalina, who is raised in the community, who served the community, will now have a pay cut that is essentially taking bread out of her children's mouth and out of her mouth. So that's where we're at.
But is there even a job for her? I mean, it doesn't sound like
there's not a midwifery job, and Rosalina is and a couple of the midwives a few of the midwives have decided to take jobs in lower classification to maintain their union status. But in no way should they be penalized for something that they in no way are cause of. They're not saying, oh, we want to leave our jobs and go to a lower classification. They have been terminated from their jobs. And now NYP, a multi-billion-dollar hospital, is nickel and diming them. Their salaries are not, they're not additional salaries. They're not doing this job just to get their hair and nails done and be little ladies at home. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it like that because that's how NYP is treating them. They are head of their households and they are not being treated as such. And further, our union contract is being violated by them even saying that they're going to reduce their salaries.
All right. Rosalino, do you want to speak, add anything to what Claudia has now said?
Claudia gave a good summary of this just all out outrageousness that is occurring. And it's just very it's very upsetting and depressing. And I have to, in order to maintain my benefits and to protect my pension, because I'm only 4 years away. I'm only 4 years away from retirement. I've decided that, I would have to take a bedside nursing position. And even with that, they're stalling. And the date is fast approaching. And they're committed to not abiding by the language in the contract that says, in no case will an employee's salary be decreased. It's in black and white. And they are determined to violate that. You know, and then bringing around these replacement midwives, you know, in front of my colleagues that are already here and parading them around, introducing them to the nurses. It's just disgusting. It's just outrageous.
Okay, can I ask you, how long have you been a midwife at the Allen?
At the Allen for 10 years. For 10 years, and then I was a nurse at Presbyterian in the labor room for a total of 14 years.
Down here at 168?
Yeah, I was there for 14 years. I did 11, and I became a midwife, and then I came back, and because and then I had gone overseas, and then when I came back, I did it was a little hard to get a midwifery position, so I went back to the labor room as a nurse for 3 years. Till this position opened up at the Allen, and I've been here for 10 and a half years, actually. Yeah, and all of us, we've all, you know, have dedicated ourselves to this hospital when we could have gone to work other places. And I mean, I'm not going to say erroneously, because I set out to wanting to take care of women that looked like me, because I think it's important. It's important for women who look like me to have people take care of them who look like them. That's very important. And Yvonne Torres, who's actually here on manning the floor, quote unquote, while I'm here, has been here for 38 years. She's been a midwife solely here in this institution for 35 years, and was a nurse in the gynecology unit in the 70s for 3 years. And now they have some spokesperson saying that some perinatal model they're moving to, they're going only to have the best and most experienced practitioners. Like, what? That's like, it's farcical.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Claudia, could you forward to me that letter that was signed by the elected officials?
Sure.
All right, that might be helpful. Because this board I think we're intent to take action at our next meeting.
Thank you. It looks like you have Julio, who's raising his hand.
Oh,
and
yes.
is a representative of NYP.
Yes. Yeah, Julio, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things. First, I clearly sympathize with some of the issues that both Rosalina and Claudia have brought up. I understand some of the concerns, and so I sympathize with them. Just want to make a couple of things. There was a letter sent out by the Attorney General to both the CEO and to the board chair. Just want to make it clear that based on her letter, she called for that that the midwifery program at the Allen hospitals being terminated, which is not the case. However, I am interested in learning a little bit more from both Claudia and Rosalina in terms of some of these changes. In terms of, my understanding is that while the midwifery program is going from the hospital, being now taken over by the university and accredited through the university, my understanding is that those positions are available for the current staff to be able to apply and be there. And so if that, I like to learn.
Julio, Julio, you can ask that question and that's fine, but we have documentation and we have no problem showing it. NYP has never offered the midwives these jobs, have never said that. So I'm not going to go back and forth about this. We have the documentation. I'm not going to engage in that very far because we do have documentation, and I memorialize every single conversation that the midwives and myself have with senior management at NYP. And in no way have they ever said in a meeting or in a letter or in any writing in any correspondence that they are offering those positions to the midwives. And that's the extent of what I'm going to say on that issue.
But let me just ask, I'm sorry, I need to ask. The program, which I still don't understand this whole rationale. The midwife program is being shifted to Columbia. So if you were to get a job in this new program, you'd have a different employer. It wouldn't be the hospital; it would be the university. And in that case, would this still be a union position or not?
No,
No, 100% it will not be.
All right, so it's not an equivalent situation. So I think that's a big problem.
it
You would
is.
you would use am I correct that you would then lose all of your benefits and your pension rights or not?
Absolutely.
Their pension would freeze. They would not get any more they would not be able to accrue any longer into their pension. Their employer paid health care, which I just want to emphasize, their employer paid health care as of this year is a little over $30,000 that the employer pays, and that would come to an end. So the reason why Rosalina, Miss Yvonne, and Maureen are moving into lower classifications is to maintain their benefits. I just want to emphasize this again because I think this is important. When we are talking about Black and brown people in this country, we do not have generational wealth. The ability to retire with dignity is what is at stake. Black women historically cannot retire at the same rate as others. So what NYP is doing is really allowing for systems of oppression to keep on being implemented on them. And that is not okay.
So the lower classifications, those positions are positions with the hospital as opposed to the university. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They
All
will
right,
be NYP. They will maintain being NYP employees.
All right, so that they can
in order
retain
to maintain their health benefits and
Okay.
has health and pension.
Right. Okay. All right.
I see OC has her hand up now.
Claudia, you're running the meeting for me. Thank you. OC.
Thank you. I guess I have a very direct question. Did Presbyterian, what they're doing now is in violation of the contract you guys have with a hospital? I don't know if anyone want to answer on this because
In terms of the rate of pay, it would be a violation.
Yeah.
But you're saying also that it's going to be a non-union position. Was that part of the?
No. If they were to take the position with the newly reconstituted program, which would be under Columbia's umbrella as opposed to the hospitals, then it would no longer be a union position.
Okay, this is not okay.
No, that's not what OC's question is. Is the layoff in and of itself a violation of our contract? Is that your question, OC?
My question is part of what's on your, is there is like a union built into your contract that is now no longer going to be if you are moving to the new positions under?
Correct, they would.
Okay,
Columbia.
So they are in violation of the contract, my point.
So we do not, NYSNA does not have a contract with Columbia University. So Columbia University would in no way be in violation of a contract with us because our contract is between us and New York Presbyterian.
Okay, so the contract, so Presbyterian is the one that violating the contract, right?
Presbyterian is utilizing layoff language in our contract. Here's what I just want to just do a quick zoom out really quickly, right? So there is layoff language in our contract. At times there are services that are truly closed. There are services that are honestly they're closed. They're for example, what happened with Psych, they closed that unit that was closed I was not the rep at the time. I think that happened in 2020, and they're going to be opening it again in 2025. But that was a unit that they closed. What they are doing here is they are utilizing our layoff language to essentially do, and I say things the way they are. They are essentially doing a bait and switch. Because they are saying to everyone, oh, we're maintaining midwifery under this whole other Columbia, and we're going to do this holistic approach, and we want experienced midwives. Meanwhile, I just want to just say this, the midwives that they have right now have 129 years of experience. I don't know where you get more experience from, but okay. So that is what's happening at this point, is that they're doing a layoff under the contract. They are using the contractual language, doing the layoff, and then maintaining the service under another employer under the guise of saying, oh, we don't like the reporting system as it is now, because, for example, Rosalina reports to her DON, who's an NYP employee, and then her DON reports to someone from Columbia. We think that it's a fragmented model. Well, the reality is the NPs at Choney are under this model. The residents who are with NYP are under this model. So this model exists throughout NYP. I failed to mention, I'm sorry, I did fail to mention one point. NYP normally does not allow employees who work in one location, for example, Columbia, to work at another location. For example, Flushing Hospital or Hudson Valley or Lawrence, for whatever reason. That has been how they have managed. NYP, in their desperation, because they were not able to find midwives initially, they had to hire a headhunter, then sends an email to the midwives in Hudson Valley Hospital and said, do you want to do moonlighting at our hospital? And they could pick up shifts. Nowhere else, and I know RNs in other NYP hospitals, like like Queens. I know that hospital really well. When I was a kid, that hospital was Booth Memorial, and I was raised in Flushing, so that's why he's saying Flushing. And it's gone through its name change, and I was a candy striper there. So, but yes, so it went from being Booth to Queens Hospital. Anyway, normally, I have a friend who works at Queens. She cannot work at Columbia, even though it's a different union because they're $11.99. They say, no, you're an NYP employee. We're afraid of things getting mixed up and overtime being triggered and not paying you correctly, so they don't normally allow it. In this case, they are so desperate that they went to the midwives in Hudson Valley Hospital. We have this in writing, and said, do you want to do moonlighting? Let your supervisor know. Again, undercutting our midwives, bringing in midwives who are not from the community. They are clear. Hudson Valley Hospital is in Peekskill, just to contextualize that. Does not have the cultural competency for the population of Northern Manhattan and the Bronx. In all honesty, they're using the contract in a way that I think is very disingenuous.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just thank you and Rosalina for joining us tonight and adding to the perspective that we have on this issue. And as I mentioned, I'm anticipating that this will be coming before our general board later this month. So thank you.
So
And,
what, we can't pass a resolution today,
no,
Steve?
we passed it last month.
Right, but it was not, so what happened? Did we vote on this? Because I don't remember it on the agenda. I wasn't on the last month agenda.
No. We I apologize. I didn't have it ready in time for the last board meeting, but it will be ready. It will be ready for this one.
Okay.
So can you share that resolution with folks, Steve?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, if you share that, you should share it with the nurses too.
That I didn't. I said share it with everyone. I didn't say just for them.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
But I would also like to say one thing, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I know that we take these. The committee does these resolutions all the time, and it seems to me that when things come up, and I understand this particular concern, but there's also a bigger issue with a whole clinic closing in our community. And this committee just said something and let it go by. There was no further discussion on it. And, it seems like, this committee needs to look at things on an equal par before doing these types of resolutions. So I just want to be able to
We
make
are
sure
talking about
I
that,
vote
but
5% on
we-
that.
Well, the Mount Sinai Clinic closed because the people in the community were not utilizing it. So there was no particular demand, and I don't Mount Sinai does not have the same, as far as I'm concerned, the same obligation to this community that that New York Presbyterian has, and that
It's
New York
a
Presbyterian.
system that provides medical care to residents of Community Board 12, especially in Inwood, and to discard it as saying they don't have the same commitment is disingenuous. Okay, I think that you need to look at things in a more broad, and not just being sort of have these harness and say, well, they don't have a commitment to this community.
Well, I'm sorry, we have a different perspective on this, but the Allen Hospital was created to be our so-called community hospital. It was meant to serve specifically our community.
We're not disputing that. We're not disputing that at all.
And when the hospital chooses to make major changes in the service that it's providing to our community, I believe the hospital has an obligation to explain it to us, to make sure that these decisions are based on have some rational basis, and employees who have devoted themselves for decades should not just be cast aside as though they haven't already provided valuable service to the community. And so I am really I'm sorry, Julio. I'm very troubled by the way in which the hospital has conducted itself with respect to these midwives, and to me it just compounds the way the hospital dealt with the psych unit, which already has made us question how the hospital is dealing with the community. So I really don't understand, after what happened with the psych unit, why the hospital would now go ahead and do this other thing at the Allen without, just apparently capriciously, without acting on any particular firm ground. So I'm sorry, but the hospital here, I think, is really,
they don't care, Steve.
That is not, OC, first of all, that's not true. Okay. Second is I'm not disputing anything.
It's sure enough feel this way.
OC, please.
Excuse me. I'm a member of this committee, and it absolutely feel this way. You calling yourself #1 hospital in the country? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for that way, Joe. OC, I'm so sorry for that way. But again, Steve, I'm not disputing what you're saying. I also think that this committee needs to look at things more broadly. That's that's what I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
Can I just add, Steve? I'm sorry, and I have to say this, and I'm sorry, I really do have to say this. And Julio, this is in no disrespect to you, but if NYP really wanted to have a representative here, they would have someone who actually has been in the meetings with the midwives. We have had meetings with their managers. We're here. We're here in this meeting with you. We're here in this meeting. Rosalina is at her job. We're here in this meeting. Not one manager from NYP who manages the midwifery services is here tonight. Not one. While Julio may work for NYP, not anyone who actually has spoken to the midwives, sent them the letter, is here in this meeting to discuss or to explain to this committee why NYP is taking this action. Julio, I've never seen you in any of our meetings. You are not there.
All right. Well,
with all due respect, I'm saying that with all due respect. I do mean, if NYP really does care, they would actually send the people who have been in those meetings, who are close to it, and would actually say, hey, this is what's going on. Instead, they are using, and I just want to say this, they are using people of color to put out their message and not having the managers here to say what exactly is going on. And I find that, has someone who's Black, and during Black History Month, using people of color to say a message that will harm us, I find that to be very concerning.
Well, I mean, actually, Claudia, I would have preferred if they had come to us before they had ever made this decision. If they had had the if they had discussed with us and let us know that something like this was even under consideration, and asked us what we would think about it, and explained to us how they thought that maybe what they had in mind was going to result in some kind of improvement. I would like to hear what I would have liked to have heard from them in advance. I don't to find out after the fact that they sent out letters and initially told people that they had until February and were going to be out of a job. I have a problem with that. But I'm sorry, we have to move on. But we'll hopefully we can stay in touch.
Rosalina has something to say.
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, the reason that they did it in this manner and the reason they do everything against this community in this manner, because this is a heavy-handed institution and they continuously operate with impunity. That is why they operated in the way that they do. That's why they did this way. They don't care. They do not care about this community. And everything they say belies what they actually do.
All right, we're going to end on that note, at least for the time being. So thank you again. And
thank you.
Thank
you very much.
And really, I mean, despite what you said, Claudia, I at least have to give some credit to Julio for even showing up and trying to respond on behalf of the hospital. So I appreciate the fact that he at least came, and as he is the regular, let's say, representative of the hospital to our committee, and I would expect at a minimum that he would be at these meetings. But let's move on. Pauline Ferranti, the Manhattan Borough Liaison with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, is still with us at this hour. Thank you very much, Pauline. Oh, hold it. No, I'm sorry. I'm violating my usual protocol. Hold on. 1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so these are the latest statistics on COVID-19 taken from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene website at about 5 o'clock today. So the hospitalization rate for the most recent 28-day reporting period shows that zip code 34 had a fairly high hospitalization rate, 59.2 out of 100,000. So it ranked as number 30 of the city's 177 zip codes. Zip code 32 was slightly behind at 55.5, ranked at number 37.
Wait, Steve, can you say that again?
Well, I can give this. Okay. Zip code 40 was at 47.8, ranked at number 53, and zip code 33 was further down on the list, 41 hospitalizations per 100,000 people, ranked at number 82. So since we last met on January the 4th, there have been 1,009 new cases of COVID-19 in our district and 5 additional deaths. So a total now of almost 72,000 cases since the beginning of the pandemic, and 1,029 deaths. So Pauline, one of the questions we had for you last month, as you'll recall, was whether the number of cases that I read off every month, whether that represents distinct individuals or whether it's just cases where if I get COVID more than if I get COVID twice, then I have 2 cases on this list, not just one. Is that the way I should? Is that the way I should read it?
Yes, that is correct. So each case is counted as its own case, and so it doesn't matter if one person has been tested and diagnosed with COVID more than once. It's still counted as that individual case.
Okay.
Also, I did ask about there was concern about having vaccine trucks and having testing trucks back out in the community. And so I did ask about that, and it doesn't look as though it's a possibility at this time, only because the emergency COVID funding has run out, and also testing and vaccines are now considered commercialized. There was just a notice that the treatment Paxlovid is now being put into the commercial system as well, and so it's no longer sort of managed by government processes anymore. It's now considered a regular, mainstream commercial vaccine. And so we don't have that extra emergency funding to utilize for that. But like I mentioned, I believe I mentioned last month, we do have the capability to work with pharmacies to do community events for flu vaccines. So if that's something that the community is interested in doing, please let me know. I can help coordinate that, but it would have to be through a pharmacy or a licensed organization where people are licensed to provide vaccines to the community. So people have to have a specific license to do that. And then I think those are the two main concerns from last month, but we are of course making sure that our messaging is getting out about, if you're sick, please stay home, and continue to mask in congregate settings and crowded locations, especially the subway. We are seeing a downward trajectory in cases, but of course, the winter is not over yet, and we are seeing, even anecdotally, friends and family getting sick with the flu or other things right now. So we just encourage everyone to continue following, the core messaging throughout COVID, which is to maintain proper, hygiene and hand washing protocols, and also to stay home if you're not feeling well, and to get tested as soon as possible and get treated as soon as possible. And also just, the vaccine is to prevent you from having to be hospitalized, to prevent serious illness, but it doesn't prevent you from catching an illness. And so again, we do encourage face coverings in really crowded locations, especially if you don't know the vaccination status of the people around you, and if you don't know, if someone potentially could be sick on the subway or in your crowded location. So those are my updates, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, two of our committee members certainly have listened to your advice, and they're not feeling well tonight, and they stayed home.
Yes.
So,
I got my booster.
Oh.
I went to nyc.gov/whatever and found a vaccine and got my booster.
the new COVID shot.
Yes,
Oh, good for you.
it was very easy.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was.
Did you go to a pharmacy?
Yeah, I went to a pharmacy. I made an appointment through the nyc.gov, led me to the portal on the pharmacy to make an appointment, and that was it.
And it was covered by your insurance?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. All right. Heidi Guzman.
I got mine a few months ago.
Yeah.
Both,
Yeah. I tried to get the RSV shot the other day, and my doctor says that I was hoping to get it at the hospital, and I was told by my doctor that I couldn't because he doesn't get reimbursed for it or some such thing. So I now have to go to the pharmacy to get the RSV. So as consolation, they gave me a tetanus shot and a shingles shot, just because I think they felt as though they still had to give me something. So they gave me two other. They gave me two other vaccines.
But did you get a lollipop?
Something. I forgot to ask, but the last few times that I've been there, they didn't have any lollipops. So I think that's maybe a cost cutting move.
Also, sugar isn't great for you, so I would prefer they give you like a Superman Band-Aid or something like that.
Oh God, don't make.
I'm just joking.
No, they gave me plain old Band-Aids. All right. Any questions for Pauline? None. Very good. All right. Thank you, Pauline. Okay,
Thank
Julio.
you.
Julio, back to you. Do you have a regular report?
Yeah. First, Sandra, apparently can't get on to the Zoom. She has some sort of problems. So
Oh.
she apologizes not being able to join the meeting. So I want to give you the COVID numbers as every month. I got this from our folks, I guess, early this morning. So the numbers are that system-wide, there are 269 cases, hospitalized patients system-wide. I was told that the Allen Hospital has 14 cases, Milstein has 56, and MS Choney has 17.
Oh, that seems like a lot for Choney, no? Wow.
I think it's been steady. I
Yeah.
hear that nationwide that the numbers appear to be going down, which may be a good thing. So also just want to report back. I know that a couple of months ago reported that the hospital that, through the community affairs, we were entering into a contract with Breaking Ground.
Yes.
So Breaking Ground is an organization that one of four organizations that are contracted by the city to do homeless outreach. Their catchment area is really down further south. I think they're down from like 23rd to 59th Street, but they also have a component within their agency where they do private contracting. So we have contract with them for a 1-year program where they would, go out, get to know, create a bond with some of the folks that may appear to be homeless, really from 165th to 168th and Broadway. And also they'll also will periodically go into the Duarte Square Park, which is a little triangle park on 170th. And the idea is to engage the individuals and try to seek support, especially housing for them. And some of the referrals will also come through our emergency department. This will be, right now it's really Monday through Friday. We're hoping that as Breaking Ground staffs up, this will be 24/7, 7 days a week. So that started. You'll know that you can identify the Breaking Ground crew because they'll have green jackets on. And so they're really right now just during the day. And hopefully within the next couple of weeks, they'll staff up and, will be the 24/7. There was an article, I believe, in Patch also talking about the work of Breaking Ground and the first month at the location. The other is the Hebrew Tabernacle. I shared an email with the board. Hebrew Tabernacle is hosting a blood drive that's taking place on February 8th from 1:30 to 7:30 p.m. I'm hoping that the board will help circulate that flyer and get people to donate blood. I understand there's a shortage, and this will be very beneficial to all New Yorkers. The Medical Center Neighborhood Fund application process has begun. We, finally updated the application. We sent that out this week. So we sent that out to, I believe it was 93 local CBOs. The Medical Center Fund eligibility, really you have to be within Community Board 12 in order to apply, and it's really open to any organization, including those that are in the forming stage, and they could use a fiscal conduit if they want to apply. So funding could be from $1,000 to $5,000, and we usually try to support all the groups that apply. And then finally, Steve, is we have a series of workshops that are taking place with the school districts. One coming up in March around vaping, smoking, and hookah. And also one in April on the body and on sugar. We will circulate. We'll have flyers soon again. We want to ask the board to help, get the message out. I don't know how we will do this. I know that we've sent stuff before and that has not gone out. But we're hoping that, through this committee, you could give us a plug so that the board will send out the notices to the community to attend these webinars. I believe that's it.
Oh, well, let me, hello?
Yeah.
Claudia mentioned earlier, and I've heard this, I think from someone else, second or third hand, that that the hospital is saying that the psych beds at the Allen would be reinstated next year in 2025. Is that confirmed? Is that do we really need to wait another year?
So I know Claudia reported that last month. I'm not privy to those conversations. I did circulate back to the Allen folks. I know that I spoke to Dr. Warren N, who is part of psychiatry, and I've not gotten the response back. But what I was hoping is that perhaps in one of these meetings, I would, ask someone from the psych unit to come to the committee and present on, if it's going to be 2025, why it's going to be 2025.
Well, again, this sort of speaks to what I was saying earlier about the fact that I don't feel as though the hospital is really leveling with us and giving us the information that you should that we want. I mean that we need in order to have some trust in the institution. So
right, so that's why I wanted to have someone with firsthand knowledge to come to the committee and report out. I know that I could talk about the construction phase and all that, but I'm not sure what that looks like. So the plan is that I would find someone to come, and whatever questions the committee has around the psych beds and when they're going to be restored, that person will be at the committee and you'll be able to answer those questions.
Well, let's do it next month. I mean, let's get the information already. Let's find out what the heck is going on. So I would appreciate it if you would arrange that. And I tell you, I don't know, is it Dr. Ng? I mean, he's such a nice guy. I hate to put him on the spot. I mean, I can't. Is he really the one who's in charge of this? Who's going to make the decisions as to when the beds are actually reinstated and when whatever work is required will actually be done? I don't know if it's really in his hands.
So I'll find out who's the right person, Steve. I know that in my conversation has been with Warren, but I'll figure out which is the right person to be before the committee to answer the questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Jody has a question.
Just a quick question, Julio. It's Jody. I'm really interested in breaking ground. I think it sounds like a really interesting program, reaching out to our homeless. You said that it will start at 160. They'll start doing their outreach 165 to 168.
170th.
170th, I think.
No,
Yeah.
well, no. Jody's correct. It's on Broadway from 165th to 168th, and then as part of their rounding, they also will go to the little park. Now, let me just add to that this is great we're doing it, but I just learned through Charlie, we had a meeting with Charlie Corliss, who does the mental health, and the district attorney's office has given an award to a group called The Bridge, I believe it's called. And they're going to be doing the sort of similar work that Breaking Ground will be doing up in Washington Heights. So I'm not sure when that's taking place, but that would be in addition to what we're doing, and their border will be extended beyond what we're doing.
And this is a one-year trial, is that right? And then possibly you would extend it beyond.
Right. So ours is a one-year pilot project, and we'll see how it goes and probably expand that. How it goes. The district attorney's project is a 3-year.
And just one more question. Most of your referrals come from your emergency room?
Yeah, so the referral will come from not only the emergency room, but they would also be canvassing the immediate area from 165th up to the little playground. up to the park.
Can the public make referrals?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can the public make referrals?
Right now is being done through the hospital. So the emergency room make referrals, the social work department will make referrals. But if there are some individuals that you sort of encounter every once in a while, or someone encounters in the area, they would take that and try to work with that person to find them housing.
How would we reach out to you?
You can reach out to me, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Are they going into the subway station?
I believe not, Steve. Not
Okay.
the subway.
All right. OC, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. The COVID rate that you indicated when you started your presentation, you indicated as not specifically related to where they're coming from in terms of zip code. I know we asked it before, can we have data that is specifically related to our district? We don't need people's name, we don't need phone numbers. All we ask is how many are being hospitalized they're coming from particular zip code. It's just that I feel will help maybe have specific I don't know, vaccination effort, you name it. I don't know what, but when you don't have a full data, we can't act on this. So this was one thing. The other thing is the blood drive. How does it work? I mean, assuming the blood is being shared by other hospitals because, for example, O is so, you don't get as many O's and it helped so many other people with different blood types. So I'm assuming it's a system that's shared throughout, I don't know, tri-state, or how does it work? The blood drive.
Yeah, so the blood drive is done through the New York Blood Center.
Okay.
And so we partner with them to do the blood drives at the hospital. Whatever's collected, it doesn't go to the hospital, it goes through the system. So this is something that Hebrew Tabernacle has, I think they've done this like 4 other times. And so we also encourage, because we do have a number of employees who live in the community, we also encourage them to, have time to go there and also be able to donate. And I believe the way it works is that if you're an employee, you donate blood, you get some sort of credit. So, we encourage them, if you're able to donate, go to Hebrew Tabernacle, donate. The blood doesn't go to the hospital, it goes to system-wide.
Okay, thank you. All right, no other questions? So we move on to our, I guess, cleanup hitter. Diane Ashley, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Isabella Geriatric Center, a unit of MJHS. Diane, turn it over to you.
Thank you. As of today, we have 29 residents who are positive and on state mandated temporary isolation. Most of those are largely asymptomatic. I know you guys are going to ask during the last month. So during the month of January, we had 3 residents who were hospitalized. They've either completely recovered or are stable at this point. In terms of the new vaccine, the Comirnaty vaccine, 46% of residents have received the new vaccine already. We continue to educate and try and expand that number. And I think that's about it. Nothing else to report today.
Okay, any questions? Oh, God, okay,
They're just tired.
we're letting you, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, we're letting you off easy. Okay, thank you, Diane.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, well, I think we've already talked ourselves out. Okay. Okay, under old business, we don't have any updated information on our street sidewalk cleanliness ratings. In terms of our recycling statistics, we now have numbers for last November, indicating that our diversion rate, the amount that we've been recycling, was 15.7% of the waste stream, which is an improvement over the year before when it was at 15.1%. So that's a somewhat good sign, and we're not quite at the bottom of the different Manhattan community districts. We're still ahead of Board 11 in East Harlem, Board 10 in Central Harlem, and Board 3 on the Lower East Side. But we're not doing as well as Board 9, which is directly to our south. OC, do you have you want to give us an update about your efforts to get a speaker and a discussion going about having a spay-neuter clinic in Manhattan?
So far, I don't have an update about that. I'm not sure that I can get anyone to commit to come and give us a presentation. I'm not sure yet. I can tell you that a few days ago I had a situation with a super that called me about one cat with his cat with some issues, and I sent him to Bronx CVC, Bronx Clinic, I mean to say. And they turn him around saying that they cannot see the cat because he doesn't live in the Bronx. And so he didn't even referring anywhere else. And I end up taking the cat to a smaller rescue where he got like a very strong antibiotic injection. But it's not the first time that happened. It's just not sustainable that way. And it's just outrageous that the people are relying on volunteer rescuers to do the work, and we're only doing it on our own free time. It's really not sustainable. So in any event, I still don't have speaker. I'm not so far. I'm not sure that I'm going to have a speaker. That's the problem.
Okay.
That's the main problem. So we may have to just pass a resolution without anyone present to us. It's going to be,
All right. Okay, well, that may just be the case. Julio.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that discussion last month that OC I mentioned. And I'd like to just throw out there in terms of supporting, we do a lot of stuff for a lot of different things, but I don't think we do a lot or enough for folks who have pets. And so, I mean, if there's some sort of proposal that could be developed where we can collaborate and work with, be it the ASPCA, whoever one of these local groups are, that they could come up to the community and, be it once a month. We have a number of dog runs that could be tied into it if they don't have a physical space up here. But I think it's something that will be worthwhile to look at and possibly support, because a lot of us, including myself, we do have pets and we do have dogs. So anything we can do to support that, more than willing to look at it.
That will be great. Space is really something I'm looking into right now. There is a group, Positive Tales, that asked me for space where they can hold a one-day clinic. That's how they do it. And so I am looking for spaces. If anyone can, I was thinking about even the High Ridge, recreation center. But I have to speak to Steve Simon about that one. Other than that, anyone that, can think about churches, community centers, you name it, that will be very helpful.
Doesn't the ASPCA or maybe some other group have a mobile van that provides this service? Haven't I seen that?
The mobile van is not back in operation in Manhattan. They only operate a few vans in the Bronx, but you have to be in a specific, you have to live in specific zip codes. And also a few vans in Brooklyn where you have to be resident of those zip codes. Everyone else, other than Staten Island, everyone else have a clinic, like the Bronx has its own clinic, Brooklyn has its own clinic.
But who operates the vans? Is that the ASPCA?
ASPCA, right.
So at a minimum, why don't we try to get them to bring a van up here?
Right. I really want a van. If they can give us a van every other month, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
So
Let's look into that.
okay. Yeah, I'm looking into it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll both look into it.
Okay.
All right. Very good. All right. Any other old business? Any new? What's that?
Did you?
No, I didn't hear that. No.
Textile recycling?
No, there's nothing new to report.
Okay.
Any new business? No new business. Any announcements? Yes, we have an announcement. The CUNY School of Public Health has reached out to me, and they, in fact, may be coming to one of our meetings sometime soon to make a presentation. But they've sent me a notice here that they're providing Narcan training next Wednesday, 10 to 11, and again 3 to 4, as part of their Harlem Health Initiative at their space at 55 West 125th Street on the ground floor. And I have some flyers here if people would like them.
My lady from the left is also on the call. Maybe we want to call them now.
Oh,
We see she has some flyers out.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mara lady.
For me?
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, I leave some flyers there that we have. The Hispanic working group, we're going to speak about lead and our policy that we are advertising, working on. And also, Saturday 10, we have our membership meeting where we're going to speak about beauty justice, where we're going to speak also about the bills that we are advertising, advocacy. And we're going to celebrate Black History Month and Dominican Heritage Month. That's going to be on 454 West in 155 Street in the Prince Hall at 10 a.m. Thank you.
At the Prince Hall Masons. And did you say that's on February the 10th?
Yes, February the 10th.
At 10 a.m. All right, very good.
Thank you.
When did you drop off the flyers? You were here earlier today?
Oh, no, today, no. That was yesterday morning.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was yesterday
All right.
morning.
These are very nice.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other announcements? No. All right, very good. So I know you're very disappointed. Well, we're at the end of our meeting. We're going to adjourn at 9:15 p.m. Unless I hear a strong objection. Hearing none, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for coming. And Julio, please get us somebody to talk about the psych beds for our next meeting. Thank you all.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks
good.
for joining
Okay,
us.
good night.
Good night.
Good night.